Well, that's a great question, Michael. The development community in our area, we're very blessed. Mayor Graves and I, up in the north end of the state here, have seen lots of development. Last year, we saw about $125 million worth of development. Now, I got some pretty astute planners. They convinced a major developer that we will have a rail stop in Hendersonville. And as such, they got zoning that reflected a rail stop. Density is a four-letter word in Hendersonville. I've got 17,000 rooftops in Hendersonville now. We've got 17,000 already approved for the future, and all that sprawl. So we have a new development in Hendersonville called Indian Lake Village. $100 million has been invested in it so far. To sort of put that in perspective, though, it's got more entitlements than Cool Springs Mall. It's 400 acres of mixed use, 3 million square foot of office, 2 million square foot of retail, and about 2,000 residential units mixed in. So it is a mixed use zoning that was actually sold on the idea that we might have a rail station there one day, which is sort of an interesting concept. I think it's important to note what Mayor Dean talked about on our corridor of crap, Gallatin Road. I'd hate to steal Mayor McQuarrie's verbiage, but it is a corridor of crap. Gallatin Road is really a neat adventure with bus rapid transit Mayor Dean has started. In Cleveland, they took a corridor very similar called Euclid Avenue that ran out to Case Western University. Spent about $250 million on it for doing bus rapid transit. It was reported in the last month's paper that they have $4 billion of private investment now that matches that public investment. And I think that's something that's got to be understood. One of the things we fight in Hendersonville, I'm sure Mayor Grace fights in Gallatin, is the perception that mass transit is only for those people that don't have cars. And I think for those of you that work downtown, half my city leaves in the morning to come downtown to work. I think for those that work down here, they need to understand that Vanderbilt and TDOT and MTA and these folks are paying $10,000 per parking space to create parking garages now. It's much cheaper for them to invest in mass transit. Matter of fact, our mass transit that Mayor Graves talked about, when you go out to our mass transit site, to our bus sites, it's not people that are homeless or people that don't drive cars or people that clean our houses. It's Land Rovers and Cadillacs and SUVs. It's people that recognize that that's a lifestyle change. It's a completely different lifestyle. Denver, you can see it in Denver, you can see it in Boulder, you can see that it's not the last option. It's a value option, and people are choosing it. And I think that's very important. We've seen real economic impacts in Hendersonville, and I think they're going to continue well into the future. I guess the last thing I would like to say about that is we're in the middle of this Northeast Corridor study running up towards Gallatin, our 30-mile corridor. And I've sat through more public meetings than I wish to sit through. So far, the best idea I've heard outside of light rail is to restripe I-65 to 6-foot lanes and everybody drive Mini Coopers. But I'm not sure that's where we're headed. I mean, there's some golden opportunities and some golden examples like what was done in Denver, where there's a decision to not add a lane of traffic that only added 12,000 cars a day, but to add light rail that had nearly unlimited capacity. And I think on his southeast corridor, he was showing 45,000 trips a day. And I think that's a common sense approach that people need to look at when we start looking at particularly our corridor, the Northeast corridor, or any of the other corridors, is that one lane of traffic in our very, very limited right-of-way will only add 12,000 cars a day. Why not put light rail out there with a big banner on the side of it that said, if you're on this, you'd be home 15 minutes ago. Last point, I guess, is I just got back from a sister city visit in Subaru, Japan, a city of about 50,000, and what Congressman Cooper said really resonates with me. We're talking regional here, but we're within a day's drive of 80% of the population. I rode a train in Subaru, Japan that went 500 kilometers an hour. Now, Mr. Officer, that's 300 miles an hour. But 300 miles an hour, you could get from one side of our state to the other in 1 hour. A 30-minute trip from Memphis to Nashville, from Nashville to Knoxville, or that day's drive to that 80% of the population would be an hour or two ride on light rail. And I think it's imperative that where we are as the hub of this side of the Mississippi, that we continue to look at bigger and better options as we go.